what? It is possible, and I did it, and a lot of people do it. And to be honest, I think that if you're in the headspace that I was, where you're just no longer feeling that passion for doing what you do, you've got to really think hard about, okay, well, is a change necessary, you know?
Welcome to another episode of The Journey, brought to you by BMG Partners. And my guest today is founder and owner of Stonehill View country lifestyle brand located in Yakandanda, David Pendleton. David, hello.
G'day.
Terrific to have you in here, David. And we start, as we always do, by asking about your heritage to the region. Are you born and bred here?
No. Originally born and bred in Melbourne. So I moved up here 11, 12 years ago, something like that. I just had the opportunity to do it, I suppose. I had a job at the time that allowed me to either run the department I was responsible for out of Melbourne, or I could move to the region. And thankfully I did, because, coming up here, I just fell in love with it straight away. And I must admit, I spent a lot of time looking out the window of the office, just wishing that I was outside and... and it's it's been an interesting journey, to certainly get to this point, that's for sure.
Well, it's just fascinating to me how many people from Melbourne that I've talked to over the journey, and whether it's people who were born here and went to Melbourne and then decided to come back, or it's people who are actually born in Melbourne. What is it you love about the country compared to the city? Whereabouts were you in Melbourne?
So I grew up in an area called Surrey Hills, so sort of inner eastern area, beautiful part of Melbourne, and went to school in Hawthorn. And then sort of when I moved out of home, Richmond, Elwood, Toorak, these sorts of places, so always sort of inner sort of areas. It was amazing and I loved it. I mean, Melbourne is a great place. But I think what I say to people is that, when you're living in a really built-up metropolitan area, you carry an additional layer of stress and sort of anxiety almost. And, the thing for me is that any time that I'm coming back from Melbourne and, you get to that Glenrowan sort of Macca's BP sort of area, you look out to your right, you see Mount Buffalo, and you just feel this release of stress leaving your body. And so for me, that's what I love. It's just there's a calmness, there's an openness, and there's an ability still to, to sort of escape the noise and to sort of, think about the things that are perhaps, important.
Yeah, it's interesting just looking at your brand and the ethos. It's very much about country, and obviously a lot of the designs too are based around classic kind of 1800s, early 1900s Australia. So, I mean, is that something that's deep inside you? I mean, when you were living in inner Melbourne, was there something inside that was saying, I really want to be in the country? Yeah,
absolutely. I think my dad's originally from Robinvale. He grew up there, and growing up, we spent a lot of time in the country, whether it was camping. My grandmother was in Echuca. So I've always been exposed to that part of, of living. And, it doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense why I feel such a connection to it. But, there was always something there, wanting to have at least some sort of a relationship with the country, with the regional area. And I think that's partly why I made that choice when I could, to say, no, I'm going to try living, in a regional area and just sort of see what it's like.
Yeah. Now, before we go any further with your journey, I do want to stop down and I want you to explain for those who don't know or just may have seen it along the way but don't know too much about it. Stonehill View, how would you best describe it?
Well, we do call it a country lifestyle business. So we make a bunch of different products. So, we sell a lot of blankets. So they're actually made out of recycled wool, and that's quite a unique aspect to them. A lot of people are surprised by. And what that ultimately is, they're made out of old woolen clothes and things like that are shredded down to their fibres. And those fibres are respun into the yarn that the fabric's made from. So there's a really great sort of sustainable aspect to the fabrics that we use. But using that, we don't just just sell them in blanket form. We make a bunch of things. We make, dog beds. We make a lot of bags, picnic rugs, a lot of that sort of stuff. But we also have a range of metal items, so fire pipes for, people that are, when you've only got a coal or two left in the fireplace, you need to get your fire cranking again, throw the logs in, you blow through the thing to get your fire going. We have log carriers, we have dinner bells. A lot of just sort of fun, nostalgic, country lifestyle products.
Yeah. All right. Now let's go back and work our way from the early days in Melbourne through to the brand and how that came to be. So you grew up in Melbourne. You always kind of loved the country. What did you study at or focus on in your school years and then later?
So I finished high school and then chose to go to university, and I did a commerce science degree where my two majors were, one was in marketing and the other was in psychology. So, went through that process, did quite well, and then found my way into my first job, really, and that was with Mazda. And, started off as a market analyst there, so really looking at the market environment, doing a lot of competitor analysis, all that sort of stuff. And so through that, after a couple of years, moved into sort of product development and product management, where I was responsible for developing vehicles for Australia. And, so did that and really enjoyed it, but I sort of got to a point where I wanted to take a step up in management and get into sort of senior management roles. And, an opportunity came my way to join a government organisation and as a marketing director or whatever you call it. And, sort of took that on and, then one thing led to another, moved into another government organisation in vocational education and, went down that path for a while. And
so you're climbing the corporate ladder.
It's interesting because that was the thing that I thought was important. And then what was funny was that after, quite a few years of working in the educational sector, I just found, and I had done an MBA as well, and so maybe that kind of opened up my eyes to a few different things. My little boy Edward was born and, probably just got thrown into the typical midlife crisis a little bit. And I just realised that I wasn't happy anymore, and all of the plans that I'd put in place were coming true, but it wasn't fulfilling anymore, and I just knew that there needed to be a change, and so we went down a path of sort of looking at, well, we've got a little bit of land in Allen's Flat, and first of all, sort of think, surely we can make some money from the land that we've got, and so started growing chilies and vegetables and a bunch of different things, and just sort of one thing led to another. And interestingly, it was through the MBA actually that I came in contact with these recycled fabrics because, part of my MBA program, I was tasked with working with a large international NGO trying to address this problem of the sexual abuse of women in sweatshops through Southeast Asia. And so it was through that research that I came in contact with recycled textiles, and I felt this was really, really cool, and I just wanted to sort of explore that further and see whether or not we can create some sort of a business that, used it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, you do hear that a lot about people moving from a corporate environment, and it's just fascinating to me that, I mean, when you're in that corporate mode, obviously you had peripheral things that interested you, like I'm sure the environment was something that you focused on. But is it easy to get lost in the corporate world and the focus on climbing it and to the detriment of everything else?
I think so, yeah. And I think a lot of people across all society is in that trap, and it's very, very difficult to get out of because, you become so reliant on this idea of having an income, like a wage, sort of hitting your bank account every couple of weeks or whatever it might be, and it just seems impossible, to exist outside of that. But you know what, it is possible, and I did it, and a lot of people do it, and to be honest, I think that if you're in the headspace that I was, where you're just no longer feeling that passion for doing what you do, you've got to really think hard about, okay, well, is a change necessary,
And of course, the people that are then going further, I mean, they can be as passionate about the corporate world as you have now become about other things. So, I mean, you really, I guess it's like sports people as well. The ones that really make it are the ones that are so dedicated to it.
Yeah.
That, I mean, if you don't have the passion for it, you just almost kind of
absolutely
treading water and wasting time.
If you're fighting something within yourself, it's just always going to be agony. And whatever way, whichever way you lean, I suppose. If that corporate direction is where you get all of that enjoyment from, awesome. Yeah. I mean, but for me, that wasn't the case anymore.
Yeah.
And and thankfully, I've been able to make that change.
And you were mentioning, you mentioned family there. Obviously, that's another almost cliche, is that, you focus too much on the corporate world and you miss your family growing up. So was that a consideration in your life change?
Hugely, yeah. And not only just, I guess, like one, becoming a father and just falling in love with this little thing and realising, there is so much more to life than just trying to accumulate wealth. Everything became about focused in on Edward. My first, I've had a second little girl called Sally. She's 2.5 now. But, I just knew that I needed to be a good role model for him, and I wanted him to live a wonderful life. And, there's a photo that I have in my phone where I was coming back from a work trip from somewhere, and this gorgeous little boy of mine was crawling along the airport floor, big smile on his face. And I was still reeling with anger, with the fighting that I'd been doing, in the job and with people within the job. And I just think this is crazy. I'm bringing this home. I'm feeling angry. I'm not happy. And, so he was a really big part of sort of steering this new thought of mine. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. And what year was this when you were starting to really question everything and just about to make that move?
It must be sort of 5 or 6 years ago, maybe maybe 6 years, something like that. Yeah, I've sort of lost track a little bit.
Yeah, and your partner?
Yeah, Jane. Yeah,
Jane.
Yeah.
Now, did she fully embrace these thoughts of giving it away and moving out to the country?
She did. No, she really did. I mean, there's fear, obviously. I mean, I was the major earner in the family, and you start questioning, gosh, can I afford to pay the mortgage? Can we do all these sorts of things? And and it was scary. And but she's only ever been a support, and she works very hard as well. She's a fantastic dietitian for Albury Wodonga Health, and but also helps a huge amount with the business as well. So, no, I mean, you need that support around you. And I mean, I'm incredibly lucky because my mum has the property next door to us as well. And so we've got a real community just within the family next door to each other. So, I've had a lot of support, and but, there's been a lot of hard work as well to sort of get to this point.
Yeah. So did your mum follow you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's an awesome story. I mean, I was originally renting in a little place in Yakandanda town. And Mum came up for Mother's Day weekend, I think it was. And anyway, she was, sitting out there on the front lawn, looking at the view, having a coffee, and just thought, I love this place, David. And I said, you should buy a property. And anyway, I think it was like literally 3 days later, this incredible property that she's now in came onto the market. And I said, Mum, get up here and have a look. It's going to get snapped up. She came up, she bought it. And anyway, and so I moved in there, and then the next door neighbour said, we want to sell our place as well. So I bought that one, and, here we are now building the Pendleton compound in Allen's Flat. So,
that's amazing. Yeah, everyone needs a compound in their life, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, that's a terrific story. So as you were really wrestling in your mind about giving it away, the corporate world and moving out, did you have the thoughts of did you always want to start a brand that focuses on the things that you do, or did that come later? Was just we've got to get out first off, and then we'll worry about what we're actually going to focus on?
I'm a bit of a hippie at heart, where I sort of feel as though there are these little guides that sort of nudge you. There are experiences that you have across your entire life that if you're sort of aware of them, they'll remain in place and they'll eventually take you to where you need to go. It sounds ridiculous because, I was a water polo player, a footy player. I was a very competitive, sort of aggressive young man. Yeah. It's that typical sort of thing.
I bet you didn't have the beard either.
I didn't have not back then, not at high school. But no, okay. And, maybe a little bit of stubble. I certainly didn't have this beard. But no, it's I always loved sewing. And, my mum used to sew a lot of clothes for us growing up. And I remember as a little boy, sewing pencil cases and things like that. And, when I was in the vocational education sector, a lot of the ladies mostly thought it was hilarious because I was obsessed with Project Runway and just watching these people sew these incredible clothes together and all this sort of stuff. And, so I think there was something there. There was something about that I loved. And here I am now. I sew bags and all this sort of stuff. I make everything. We've got a bunch of sewing machines that we make all our gear on, and I love doing it.
Yeah. So talk me through how you came to focus on our region and Allen's Flat and Yakandanda specifically.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I moved to Yakandanda was that one of my bosses at the time lived in Yak. And I just sort of was in the headspace that if I'm going to move to a regional area, I want to live in a smaller town rather than being in a larger town to really immerse myself in that regional living. And just came in contact with Yak and absolutely fell in love with it, from a very early stage. And just, there's a great energy about that town and really, really proactive, interesting group of people. People sometimes ask me what makes Yak work, and I'm not sure if I'm nailing it with this, but the feeling that comes through is that it's a really great balance of conservative thought but also really progressive thought. And, it's a community of people that get along and communicate quite, freely and openly about different ideas, and I think that's really quite important.
Yeah.
And they take ownership. So whether it be the petrol station that's been built there or if it's the sports, centre that we have there, most of these things are community-led initiatives. And really, it's the reason why the town is so strong.
Yeah. Did you kind of town shop? Did you go to Beechworth and Myrtleford?
Yeah.
And did you go around everywhere?
Yeah, I did. I'm also looking perhaps even more remote though. So, looking at Stanley, looking at Eskdale, these sorts of places. I really wanted to be away from it all. But it was just like, I just wanted that comfort of having somebody that I knew close by. And that's why, having, Les, my boss, close by just sort of felt right. And and also because it is that little bit closer to Albury Wodonga, which, made a difference as well.
When you rock up to Albury Wodonga, despite growing up in Melbourne, do you go, this bloody city life, it's too fast for me. I want to get out and back to Yakandanda?
Absolutely. No, I almost have too much fun when I go to Melbourne, and it's kind of like I need to kind of calm down a little bit. But no,
even here, do you go?
Albury Wodonga, hell yeah! No, this is the big. It does feel that way, and I must admit, I love Albury Wodonga, but I try to avoid coming in as much as I can because you know what, I much prefer wandering the high street of Yakandanda than.
It is funny how that happens. So I grew up in cities. Yeah. Adelaide. I lived in Melbourne. I've lived in Brisbane. And I'm exactly the same. If there's a red light and it's 5 cars deep, I'm like complaining like it's rush hour in Melbourne, which happens all day now in Melbourne pretty much. It's funny how you change your perspective based on that. But fascinating. So you moved to Yakandanda, and at this stage, did you have Stonehill View firmly in mind?
No, when I first moved to Yak, no, not at all. That really didn't happen until Mum bought her place, and then I started growing vegetables and chilies in particular on a sort of a larger scale.
So you didn't know what you were going to do, despite moving to...
Oh, no, I already had a job. So I had the job in for Wodonga TAFE. And so, that was all set up.
So you settled that before you... It wasn't like, I'm just going to risk it all.
Oh, no. So I moved up, had the job, all that kind of stuff, had that security. And so then when Mum bought her place, I moved into that property for a little while and, just started growing vegetables and just loving it. I'd get out of the office every single evening, rush home, get out into the paddocks, onto the tractor, all that sort of stuff. And so I would just spend hours every evening, just tending to the produce that we were trying to grow. And I think that's where it all kind of started. And then when the opportunity came to buy the property next door, it had an established olive grove on it. And so all of a sudden we're producing olive oil and, we're selling that olive oil. And it was just one step after the other. And so it's just, it all just sort of came together. But then the country lifestyle stuff really came about more so, I think, through, that MBA program, coming in contact with these textiles and then sort of looking at, well, all right, we need to have more diversification in the way that we make money from just, vegetables, the olive grove. And then we've started up a little flower farm as well. So it was just about diversification and what's possible, I suppose, when you haven't got, hugely deep pockets. What's a little business model that you can create, relatively simply and cheaply, and start making good things.
Yeah. So are you full time in the business?
Yeah,
now?
yeah, absolutely.
And when did you make that decision?
It was just straight away, to be honest. It was like I had a bit of money saved up, and so I had a bit of a buffer. But no, it was just all in at that point. After I finished up at the corporate stuff, I did work at a local nursery with one of my mates' owns, and I did a few hours a week there for probably 12 months. But then at that point, hey, luckily, hard work, all that sort of stuff, this business just became incredibly busy. And now, to be honest, it's a 6 to 7 day a week, job.
Yeah. If I go to the website, you've got a large range, a lot of rugs, and you've even got I'm on the pet pillow at the moment, but a lot of rugs and a focus on the kind of rustic kind of designs. So talk me through how it works on a day-to-day basis. Who's making it? You did mention that you were sewing them, but talk me through how it's all made.
So basically, we get this fabric in blanket form from India. So that's the recycled fabric. We unfortunately just don't have the domestic clothes recycling systems in Australia yet, that I'm aware of anyway, certainly on a large scale. And so we get this fabric milled for us and made for us in India, and bring it to Yakandanda, to what I call the sweatshop, where we just make everything. So we break it all down, and then we've got suppliers of canvas and leather and all that sort of stuff from mostly Australian suppliers, which is great. And get in there, and depending on where the demand is and where the stock levels are low, just start making.
Yeah.
And at the moment the bags are incredibly popular, and a lot of the week is spent making bags. But no, the picnic rugs that I call a country rug is also incredibly popular as we come into the warmer months. But the dog beds are awesome. I really love the pet pillows, and in particular because the wool or the pillow that goes on the inside of them is stuffed with wool that we rescue from Wangaratta Woolen Mills. So it's a hard wool waste product that would traditionally just go into landfill. But no, we've been able to secure, that supply, and not all of it, but some of that supply to put into our carry cushions as well, but the pet pillows.
Yeah.
But what's really exciting is that organisations like these woolen mills, they're starting to send a lot of their hard wool waste to India as well to get it processed down to fibre form, so that we can start respinning it in Australia, so that we're just, even across the industry, seeing more and more sort of conscious effort to reduce the waste going into the ground.
Yeah, and how important was that to you?
Yeah, very important, yeah. It's not something that I obsess over, but it's just something that makes sense. For me, it's like, if you can avoid using these plastic fibres, I mean, why wouldn't you? I think that, the research has been done and around the damage that not only it does to the environment, but to our, to human physiology. It's in our interest to try to minimise the consumption and the use of these products where possible. We need it. We can't just get rid of it. But, like I said, just where it makes sense. And to me, that made sense.
Yeah, so, yeah. Now, a big change, obviously, not just for you, but for the family. And you mentioned your partner, Jane, but two kids as well. So how are they going with the change from Melbourne to this whole new life?
Well, they weren't around when we moved up here. So Edward was born up here and Sally was born up here as well. So they only know what we have, but they love it. And I can see, as parents, we live vicariously through our children often. But I look at the way that Edward in particular, because he's just that little bit older, is engaging with the environment and the friends that he's forming around that. He does bush kinder at Yak, kindergarten, and it's a great program there. But what's really exciting is that there's another family that has an office in the building that we operate out of, and little Bernie, one of their children, goes to kinder with Edward. We've teamed up, and I've dedicated a paddock on our property for us to grow vegetables together. So as a little team, we're going to grow enough vegetables to feed the families for an entire year, get into sourcing and, preserving and pickling and all that kind of deal. Again, just to sort of take these kids and get them into this environment of learning about where food comes from and how to go about growing it, and just have that real connection with nature and that part of life.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit of sliding doors stuff then. So let's say you never made this decision. Could you foresee that you could have just continued working, treading water, but at a pretty high level, and just continuing to work in Melbourne?
It would kill me. I think it would have killed me in the end. Again, it's not for what I've done is not for everybody. It's for me. And, I was unhealthy. I was overweight. I was drinking too much. I was smoking, all of those things. Everything about, was sending me to really an early grave, I suppose. So, I feel incredibly thankful that this opportunity, all these opportunities have sort of come my way and landed me here. But that's amplified even more when you have kids. And it's something that Jane, my partner, and I talk about sometimes, is that Jane was an incredibly good rower. She won at the Nationals, all this sort of stuff. And, and she had aspirations to row at the Olympics and whatever. And I just sort of think, how amazing would that have been if she had done that? But we wouldn't have Edward. We wouldn't have Sally. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, this idea of sliding doors, it's like, no, thank God I have what I have. It's fortunate. And so, no, it's good.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're just so comfortable with the decisions that you've made and where you are in life. With the benefit of hindsight, though, what advice would you have for your younger self? I mean, would you say get out sooner, or did it happen at just the right time because you appreciate it now, having lived that life?
I think if everything happens precisely as it needs to happen, I mean, all we ever have is this reality that we exist in right in this moment. So, what advice would I give to a younger me? I just think it's if I could say anything, it's just to be a little bit more in touch with the stuff that brings passion. Recognise that there are so many distractions going. And I grew up in a very privileged environment. I went to one of the best schools. I grew up with some of the wealthiest people in the country. And you become so caught up in this idea of the thing, that little lure, that shiny thing. And all it is a distraction. It isn't the thing that brings, certainly me, happiness. And so, I would say to that little David, just be aware of the stuff that makes you happy and just focus there, because you'll end up landing exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. I've always kind of thought there's like that dopamine kind of happiness that you get when you buy something awesome, but it never really lasts. Yeah. And then you have to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And before long, you've got a house full of stuff, no money, but you're not actually at your core happy.
Totally.
Really, or there's no meaning there, and you don't feel fulfilled,
absolutely,
et cetera.
No, absolutely. No, I think it's an important thing to realise, and I still feel it. I mean, we're all susceptible to it. I love, that feeling of buying something that's kind of exciting or special. But yeah, you're right. As soon as it's in your hands, 99% of the time, all of those feelings just disappear. It's just a thing.
Do you drive a Mazda?
A Mitsubishi.
They are very good cars, Mazda. There's no question about it. Yeah. Do you love cars? I mean, or was it just something that you an industry?
No, not really. I mean, I just enjoyed the psychology behind buyer behaviour, and I loved this idea of using models to sort of predict, the behaviour of humans. And so at Mazda at the time, we would use a thing called a perceived value analysis to try to work out the way that we would develop a product. And I love the psychology behind that. It's not about the value of something, it's about how much you're prepared, what you perceive the value in that thing. And I love that trickery in building product and developing product.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, has that helped you? I mean, a lot of people have thoughts of starting their own business, but I mean, you've had a grounding in marketing and sales at a high level. So has that definitely helped you with what you're doing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, it has. It's hard to really sort of understand why, but you know what? It's not just that. It's everything. All of our experiences lead to where we are today, and the knowledge that we accumulate over a lifetime is huge, and every single part of that is important. Whether it's an ability to communicate clearly with people or just empathize with people, understand somebody's perspective. These are all things that you can pick up from all over the place. And, I happen to pick a bunch of that stuff up through my studies and through my work. But no, for me, the answer to so much of success in business, and I'm not pretending that I'm successful in any way, it's just what I am, but it's just it is that authenticity. It's about just listening to that little spirit guide and what does your intuition say? I think intuition is more important than we probably give it.
Yeah. I bet you have fantastic statistics on the people that buy from you. Let's just roughly here at a surface level. Where are most of your clients from? Where are most of the people that buy your products from?
It really is all over the place. I mean, a major part of our income is through markets. So we do a Saturday market every week and then one Sunday market still. And, so through that, we're exposed to a lot of local people, but also a lot of tourists. And then if you look at the market experience as more of a marketing experience rather than, a selling opportunity, all of a sudden, your brand is getting in front of thousands of people. So we're at a point now where we have customers from all over the country. And to be honest, I choose to not go international at this point because I can't keep up. And the business can't keep up. And so we struggle enough as it is just to try to cater for, the local market, the tourist market and the online national market.
Yeah. How competitive is it?
It's competitive, but what people sometimes forget is how big the consumer market is. Much like when I was back at Mazda, my job was to have a really close relationship with the competitor, brands. We'd share vehicles with each other and learn about each other's products. And so I guess, and what that did is that it just helped you develop your product. So for me, I don't really look at people necessarily as competition. It's just they're there wanting to get a piece of the pie. And the reality is the pie is way too big for me anyway. So, hey, bring it on. So, yeah. And they motivate you. You learn stuff from that as well. Like you'll see something that might be making a similar product. That's a really great idea. So what can I do? Not copy it, but what can I do to kind of, address it in a different way?
Yeah.
So it's a competitive market, but it's not scary competitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is authenticity? Because whenever I look at a small kind of artisan brand, I always kind of go in a little wary, if you like, or slightly cynically maybe. I kind of go, now what are these people all about? Are they really authentic about what they're doing? Yeah. How important is it, do you think, to be authentic in this space?
It's the most important thing. I mean, it truly is. It's just, I smell that as well often when you sort of go into an environment and you can just suss it out straight away. And that's why, I'm an open book. And you know what? I say dumb things sometimes and I do stupid things sometimes, but that's just purely because that's just me coming out. And people appreciate that. They really do. And they love coming in and they love having a conversation. And it's, again, one of the greatest things about my job is that, doing these markets and talking with people and understanding what their life is and, the challenges that they're facing and what they believe. And what's incredibly reassuring is that, I speak to thousands and thousands of people. And during a time within society where we talk about and we highlight so many of the divisions that we have across society, I can tell you that these divisions are the minority. The vast majority of us feel the same way, want the same things, and it's positive stuff. And, so from a therapy perspective, it's really good for me to kind of realize, there's a hell of a lot of good, like-minded people out there, despite what, we're told.
Yeah, it's easy to go down those kind of rabbit holes and then end up thinking that the divisions are just so great that, we're stuffed.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
No, definitely not from what I've found with real people. Okay, so final question before we head to our traditional end of chat wrap-up questions, and that will be really the future. Where do you see a business like this and yourself in 5 to 10 years? Because obviously there's been a long history of small businesses going too far and just being a little bit too ambitious and losing the essence and the soul of what it was. Yeah.
It is something I put a lot of thought into, and what's really exciting is that there's a bunch of us in Yakandanda, Backwoods Distillery, which is next door to me, Feather and Drum, the hat maker. I'm wearing one of her hats today, Kat's hats today. We incorporated a company, a not-for-profit, mostly to try to access funding from government to build a cultural and makers centre in Yakandanda. And under its current sort of plan, I mean, this is a $50 million build, and so it's a really, really big project that we're working on, a true celebration of Indigenous culture, but also our culture as well, making culture. And, you know, for me, what I felt so drawn to in that was this relationship that we're going to form with local education providers, whether it be primary, secondary, vocational, show young people that there is real opportunity in making things, these little tiny little micro businesses. There's really great opportunity there. I mean, we talked a little bit about what would I say to a younger David. I think, you know, growing up, and you probably experienced the same thing, it was that message of just follow your passion, you know, and then you'll be happy. It's not enough. A child needs a little bit more guidance around that. You know, it's like, but how? How do I bring this passion into an environment where I can, it's not just about making money, but we have to make some money, you know, and that's what this Makers Guild and this cultural centre, or this Makers and Cultural Centre, is going to be able to do. So that's a really, really big passion project that I'm part of, which will be exciting. But also, I just, again, listening to intuition, something very important to me is this idea of being able to feed the community. And so the little project that we're doing for the two families, you know, I want to see that grow over time so that, you know, at some point in the future, you know, every single person that lives in Yakandanda or in that region, they can wake up every day and say, I know a place that I can go to get beautiful produce. It's not going to cost me anything. And, you know, so these are where my passions lie. And to be honest, I can't see why it's not achievable. And we will be able to do it. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, Yakandanda essentially has to be one of the most self-sufficient towns. Yeah. Certainly in the region, but probably in Australia, really.
Sure. Oh, no, that's incredible. Totally renewable Yakandanda with the work that they've done. Like I said, the development of the petrol station and the hardware stop, or, you know, the produce area up there. You know, the sports park, so much of it.
Where are you in terms of energy? You had the battery?
Yeah, I think the second battery's gone in.
Yes.
Or it's very close to going in. And, but yeah, it's...
so it can be off the grid.
Yeah, well, the town is I think pretty much close to that. To be honest, it's I don't recall exactly where it's at, but we might have already been. You know, whatever that word is for.
It is extraordinary. It genuinely could become completely self-sufficient. It's a remarkable achievement. So, okay, usually I ask, you know, if you have people heading to Albury-Wodonga, the general wider region, but I'm going to park that and I'm going to go. You've got someone lobbing up to Yakandanda. Where should they go? What should they do?
Right, walk the streets. So head up to an area where I am called Yak Station Precinct. You've got Backwoods Distillery up there, the Guard. So Backwoods Distillery, they just won Victorian Distillery of the Year. So they make incredible spirits, so whiskies and gins. You've got a little business called The Guard up there that does incredible coffee. Happy Baker make some of the best pastries you'll ever eat. So that's a really good place to start. But walk down the hill, walk down through the park, go to the high street, check out Feather and Drum. So Kat, my mate, that makes these, you know, handmade custom hats. They're amazing. She doesn't do just custom. She's got off-the-shelf stuff as well. There's so many exciting little businesses in town. You know, Vivian, Kate, Seventh Pocket, you know, a bunch of these businesses, which it's just fun to peruse and to go in there and check out what's going on. But, you know, walk around, walk down to the sports park. There's a great walk along the creek there.
Oh, the creek walk is just
unreal,
marvelous,
isn't it? And you get to that point where we see the cutout where the old, you know, mining was. I mean, it's so great. The thing for me, get up into the pine forests. You know, when the pine mushroom season's going, get up there and forage and, you know, get some pine mushrooms. It's just, you know, have a connection to nature. You know, I was listening to a podcast a couple of years ago, and one of the things that somebody said was that one of the greatest flaws of humanity is the fact that we feel that we're separate from nature. We're not. We're part of it. So get in there and feel it. Have that silence. Listen to the wind. These are the things that bring joy.
You should work for the Yakandanda Tourism Board.
I don't think council will have me. So,
and it's such a unique feel to the place as well, and that's what I love about it too. And you could say that about all of them in and around that kind of area and Indigo generally, but you know, like such a different feel to Beechworth, which is wonderful in its own right. And then Myrtleford and Bryce and just God's country.
It really
and all
is.
around Alpine and Indigo. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Are you a sweet or savoury person?
Do you know, more savoury, but gosh, when I go down that sweet path, I hit it hard.
And finally, do you have any recommendations for us, whether it's something you're reading, watching, listening to?
Yeah. Do you know, I think one of the more recent favourites of mine, well, it's not recent, but I read it regularly, is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, a great, Roman emperor. Incredible to read the writings of someone from 2,000 years ago, and to sort of see how that a lot of these ideas and thoughts are still relevant for today. Another really good book worth reading is Genius Foods. So if you're interested in understanding health and some of the foods that we eat that aren't that great for you, read that one. It's very important. So, there's plenty of others, but that's probably a good start.
Yeah, terrific. First person to recommend a Roman.
Oh, there you go.
That's terrific. David, it's been fantastic chatting to you, meeting you, and discovering your journey as well. David Pendleton, thank you so much, mate, and lovely to meet you.
No, thank you so much. It's been awesome.